Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th Rhode Island Atheist podcast. Sorry for skipping June. We had the Pride events, and while there was discussion of us doing one on the second Sunday or whatever because of all the Pride marches we were doing, we just ended up taking a break for June. But we have, I would say, a lovely episode, although we're going to be discussing a topic that might be a little irritating. Because apparently there are people in Texas who once again want to shove their personal beliefs onto everyone else in the country because their beliefs are the only ones that matter. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. The Rhode Island Atheist July meeting is on the 19th, the Sunday, the 19th, from 4:30 to 6. Contact the organization for details about location, because it doesn't seem to be posted here on the event. Sometimes they like to not completely televise that. I don't know. I guess the idea is so that people who don't like us won't come harass us during our meetings. Honest to God, I feel like that would just make us look better or them look worse, but that's the executive decision that was made. Meetings and honest that. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the topic at hand. We're going to be reading into... I did read a couple articles about this before, but I want to read more again because I want to fully understand what it is that's going on. Don't know how that got moved. There, that's much better. Texas! We have a few different articles open up, including one that kind of played it down, so I'll be interested to see how I feel reading that. PBS News, required Bible stories for Texas students, challenge separation of church and state. This was written by William Brangham and Jackson Hutchins. All right. Passages from the Bible will now become required reading. Where is the wabbit? Passages from the Bible will now become required reading for public school students in Texas. The Republican-controlled State Board of Education approved the mandatory reading list on Friday, the first of its kind in the country. Well, that's all right. We already lean too much one way, so that's not a great sign. Anyway, William Brangham discussed the new guidelines and how they came about with Jaden Edison, the public education reporter at the Texas Tribune. Oh, shit. We have the Texas Tribune open here. Not planned, by the way. I'm just that good. I'm the nose. I assume I'm butchering that pronunciation. Passages from the Bible will now become required reading for the roughly 5.5 million public school students in Texas. That follows the State Board of Education approving a new mandatory reading list on Friday, the first of its kind in the country. The Republican-controlled board also approved the controversial overhaul of the state's social studies curriculum for elementary and middle school students. William Brangham has the details. Starting in the first grade, students will... You gotta indoctrinate them early. Speaking of grooming, excuse me. Starting in the first grade, students will now be assigned at least one mandatory Bible passage per year. Wow, one whole passage. Maybe that's not so bad. Although they will cherry pick the ones they send them, along with classics by Shakespeare, Dickens, and Langston Hughes. The new social studies guideline emphasized Christian concepts. Oh boy, and figures, while downplaying the significance of other events tied to race in American history and reducing focus on world events. I remember this in 2016. They were trying to get rid of all the awkward things like, oh, the way we treated the Native Americans. Let's not talk so much about that. World War II, let's just talk about how based we were and how we basically won the whole war. And, fucking... Oh yeah, slavery and Jim Crow. Let's kind of like mildly touch on that, but let's just breeze over the more gruesome parts. You can't criticize your own country. That means you're not patriotic, especially not if you did bad things in the past. You just got to move forward behind them. Reason and science, cats bored calm. How do you explain our existence without a creator? Listen, bro, at the end of the show, you can come in, we can have a chat. I haven't got to argue with anyone at the end of one of these episodes yet, so maybe we can bring you on and talk about it. It's not incumbent on me to explain to you how we came into existence. If you have a theory for how you think we came into existence, that being a magical fairy dude who lives outside in outer space somewhere we can't see, who just created us with a wave of his magic wand, you have to establish it's incumbent on you to establish that. The burden of proof is on you. That's how it works. Otherwise, you just believe anything. I could make up any random dog shit story and sell it to you and not provide any evidence for it and say, well, how do you know that's not how it happened? And then what? You have to accept that? That's not how it works. Use your brain, bud. But we can talk about it later. At the end of the episode, if you're still here, we can jump into the Discord and we can have a voice combo. We can argue about it. That's perfectly fine. Anyway, the State Board of Education said the updated curriculum would, quote, give students a comprehensive understanding of the arc of history. But critics say the changes elevate historical disinformation, would you believe it, and violate the separation of church and state, which we violate every day in this country, unfortunately, with God on the fucking money, but that's besides the point. Although that's one of the pettier issues, to be fair, but it is still annoying. It's just a sign that no one cares. I wonder what James Madison... Wait, how... Now I'm curious. Did we always have God on our money? America, did we always have "In God We Trust" on our money? Or is this another 50s thing? 1957. It's always the fucking 50s, I swear to God. I mean, it was a thing that was said often during the Civil War as like a little motto, but it wasn't on the money. Man, the 50s were just the worst, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Can I get like a better... Yeah, because James Madison fucking thought that church chaplains... Okay, this is obviously a pro-separation of church and state org. So if you want to bicker on the facts of this, feel free to. I can find a better source, but... The United States didn't have an official motto for most of its history. Its secular and unifying phrase, "E pluribus unum," out of many one, filled that role until 1956 when Eisenhower signed legislation declaring "In God We Trust," the country's motto. Well, I guess a mark against him. The phrase would have been alien to our founders. It first appeared on coins in the North during the Civil War. 1861, Christian... Okay, so a little bit earlier than 56, I would say. But only in the North? How does that work? A Christian minister from Pennsylvania, Reverend Mark... We're on a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm interested in this. Watkinson wrote to Salmon Chase, Secretary of the Treasury, and suggested a new coin be created that included the phrase "God, Liberty, Law." Production of this coin, Watkinson argued, would relieve us from the ignominy of heathenism. Yeah, bro. All those Catholic pastors abusing children make me feel really ashamed of my heathenism, and place us openly under the divine protection we have personally claimed. Chase liked the idea, but rejected the suggestion of that motto and tweaked it to "In God We Trust." Appeared on a 2-cent piece minted in 1864, not uniformly on coinage going forward. President Teddy Roosevelt, based king, believed references to God and money was inappropriate and had it removed from gold coins minted in 1907. So a guy with a fucking head on his brain. The bull moose man. Thanks for subscribing, Otangelo Grasso. Reason Science Cats Board Com. I wonder if I just went off on that guy and he wasn't actually like a hostile entity. But he was just asking me to explain, but you know, I can bring him on voice at any time. We can hash it out. Anyway, back to what I was reading. Let's start talking about the new requirement, the reading list. The State Board of Education said that this is a classical correction in the previous curriculum. Quote, resulted in generations of students who do not know the greatness of America or its greatest state, Texas. Now, opponents, as you have been reporting, argue that this is mostly straight white men. I don't care about the race, dude, or the coming at the expense of people of color and women. I mean, to be fair, religion does not have a good history with with brown people or women. That is fair, actually. I'll take that back. And then it's a phrase that's used all the time. It's like, okay, bro. And then there are also these Bible passages. What should we know about this reading list, and specifically what it requires of students with regards to the Bible passages? Also, when I pump my leg, is it shaking the mic? I think I took care of all the background noise filters on the mic, so hopefully not. But I'm gonna stop doing that. Jaden Edison, public education reporter, the Texas Tribune. Well, this is significant for a number of reasons. I think the biggest being that for the first time here in Texas, right, typically, this is quite a sentence. When we have seen the introductions, say, of lesson plans or materials here, as recent as the last couple of years, those have been optional, right? And districts have had the opportunity to be able to adopt them or not adopt them and to adapt them to children as they see fit. But the final version that was just authorized effectively, again, is the state saying that children as young as 6 years old, I thought it was first grade, as 6 years old, all the way up to preparing to receive your high school diploma, will be required to engage with or read Bible passages. And it would be one thing if it was, read this kooky book that so many people believe in because it's like an interesting literary experiment. But that's clearly not what it is. It was talking about fucking Christian concepts, and they want to shove their morality down other people's throat. They're not just doing it out of some intellectual exercise. And again, that's significance. You look at Texas, right? One of the most diverse states in the nation, not along the lines of just race and ethnicity, but also along the lines of religion, right? Muslims, Buddhists. I don't actually know. Are there a lot of Muslims and Buddhists in Texas? Folks who are not religious at all, right, will be mandated to engage with these materials that have not been required that have now been required by the state. And so, certainly, this is extremely significant and something that will impact. Really, they couldn't clean this up for when they published the interview. Extremely significant and something that will impact nearly 5.5 million children here in public schools in Texas. Brangham. We should also remind people that Texas also mandated the displaying of the Ten Commandments in all public schools. Whoever decided this, I can't actually say on the air what I would think should happen to that person. Anyway, opponents argue that this kind of biblical education does violate the separation between church and state. Where's the Satanic Temple? Send the fucking Baphomet statue here. These dumbasses will never learn their lesson until you teach it to them every single fucking time. Opponents argue this kind of biblical education does violate the separation between church and state. Gee, why would they argue about that? How do supporters justify this? What do they argue is the reason for mandating this for all those students? Jaden Edison. A lot of what you hear is what we have seen really religious scholars and historians dispute, especially in recent years, is this belief that America was founded as a Christian nation, and so, therefore, all of its laws and policies and practices, specifically you really think, where are these sentences I'm reading? You really think about education and the role that plays in developing young citizens, all those institutions should reflect Christian values and beliefs. He's describing the belief that the people who put this in had. Yeah, because they want to shove their values and beliefs down your throat, whether you agree with them or not. What's wrong with that? And that's what they have said and what they have argued. And it's also this belief that children cannot learn about, say, for example, Western civilization and European tradition without knowing stories laid out in the Bible. It would be one thing to teach it, again, from an intellectual standpoint, but they're not doing it for that reason, because are they only doing their own book? Are they teaching the fucking Quran and the fucking Torah and I don't know, what's the fucking Buddhist text? Are they teaching all of these, or are they just focusing on the Christian one? Of course they are. There's plenty of Jewish people here who live here. There's a minority of Muslims who live here. And so you talk to historians, our country is founded on Enlightenment principles, like literally separation of church and state, science, skepticism towards the church, all of that thing. It was based on all of that, and yet the Christians want to come and make it about themselves. And so you talk to historians, you talk to educators, you talk to people of various faith traditions, races, ethnicities, certainly. Those things are contested. But obviously that has been a lot of the rationale for a lot of these policy changes. You look at the last few years and this feeling that from conservative advocates and Republican leaders here in the state that schools are training kids to hate the country because of how they depict America's history of racism and slavery. You don't have to hate your country because your country did really bad things 100 fucking years ago. That's not how it works. This must be why Turkey refuses to recognize what they did with the Armenians, because people have this baby brain idea that you can't say, hey, what we did 100 years ago is really fucked up. And also, I don't hate that we're here. Unfortunately, with this concept, you do get undermined by the sort of super far on the fringe people who unironically think that we're an evil country and want to fucking topple everything. I once had an argument with someone about, I don't even want to bring up the topic, but then it came up, they were talking about the Native Americans as well. And obviously, I'm not a conservative person. I think that what we did to the Native Americans was really fucked up and bad, and I don't feel bad for saying it. Andrew Jackson was a psychopath, and he shouldn't be on our $20 bill. Um, but this person just made me feel stupid for being associated with them by going, I would understand if the Native Americans attacked us and tried to take it back. I'm like, what are you talking? What is this virtue signal supposed to appeal to? So I'm not saying that these people don't exist. Unfortunately, they exist more now than they ever did before. Unironically, I hate myself for being white and I hate myself for being American, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying these people don't exist, but they are on the fringe and they are the vast minority. And this issue, this argument about what we should, whether or not we should teach about the terrible things we did in American history in like AP US history classes in high school or whatever, is completely unrelated to that. Just because you love your country doesn't mean you don't teach about every single thing that's relevant in its history, regardless of whether it's convenient for you or whether it makes you feel good or not. Because at that point, you don't want education, you don't want patriotism, and you don't want an understanding of your country's history. You just want to fucking feel good. And that's not being educated, and that's not being honest. And if you really can't stomach that, if you can't both love your country and accept its flaws, then fucking maybe you don't deserve to be in charge of what gets taught in schools. Maybe you're too stupid and too immature to handle that. You should be able to teach about the racism and slavery without also being a fucking moron who thinks that means we have to hate ourselves. Brigham. Let's talk about those changes in social studies. That was a very contentious process. Explain those changes and how they will impact students. Edison. I think about these things in tandem, right? And what we're talking about is a complete rewrite and overhaul of the way Texas has historically. There are left-wing reactionaries, there are, but they're relatively rare and they're usually created by being raised and coming of age in insane theocratic nationalist environments, in my experience at least. Yeah, I'm sure that the far lefty movements, that being raised in theocratic and very overbearing Christian nationalist households could make you go completely the opposite direction and just be crazy the other way. Now, I don't endorse you doing that regardless. I think you're responsible for your own ideology and your own thought process, but I'm sure that has an effect on it. I would be interested if we somehow won the ideological battle against the Christian nationalist people and we became a more secular country that wasn't fucking insane, and that we could have adult conversations without the Christians all coming in screaming about how teaching slavery means that we hate America. I wonder if there would be less left-wing reactionaries. You would hope so, right? If we were all a little bit more moderate. I don't say moderate as in like I'm a centrist between left and right. I am very much on the left. Thank you very much. I am a liberal. Unfortunately, the word moderate has been kind of sullied by people using it who are just conservatives. But no, but I mean, if there were less crazy people on the right, maybe there would also, as a sort of push and pull, be less crazy people on the left. But unfortunately, right now, the crazy people on the right have all the power. That's the kind of what's going on right now. But it doesn't mean we should not pay attention to the other end of it. But the people on the right are more of the problem right now, for sure. I think about these things in tandem, right? And what we're talking about is a complete rewrite in overall the way Texas has historically taught social studies, right? And what we're seeing now is a very Texas-centric, American-centric, American exceptionalism-centric lesson approach. I don't even like this phrase. I feel like this is a marketing term that the conservatives have pushed in to make it about, if you're against this, you're against America being exceptional. Are you against American being exceptional? Excuse me for the misspeak. But we are great. We're an amazing nation. We were fucking running shit across the world for a long time before Trump decided that we didn't need allies anymore and completely tanked us internationally. But we are an awesome country, and despite all the terrible things we did, we get a lot better. We do a lot of things better than other countries have done. People would argue healthcare as an exception to that rule. Which is, I don't even necessarily know. It's kind of a complicated subject. I mean, we could definitely do better than we're doing now. But we are an awesome nation. We do awesome things. And we were like sitting on the top of the world for decades after World War II. Basically, the biggest military power. We're doing all this international diplomacy, all the soft power we had that Trump threw away. And now it's kind of hard to see ourselves as that because he's thrown all of that away. And whose fault is it? The secular people who supposedly hate America? No, it's the dipshit who decided that we didn't want to be allies with the rest of the West anymore. We wanted to cozy up to people who have historically been our enemy, like Kim Jong-un and fucking President Xi and fucking Putin. 100%, but okay, cool. I assumed I said something based and that you were agreeing with me. Awesome sauce. This new approach, right, is in chronological order, but also currently students who are in 6th grade, they attend a world cultures class, right? Don't tell me the world cultures class is all about Christianity. I will lose my mind. Which teaches them about the various governments and traditions of different cultures. Okay, good. Throughout the world. It's in the name. Well, that course has been eliminated. Oh, what was I thinking? Certainly, again, a dramatic overhaul of the way things have been taught in Texas, and obviously the way things will be taught for years to come. Solemn Senpai, hello again, Zaylor. It's an honor to see you. Hey, how you doing? I have been streaming for a long, but I have good news. I will be streaming my Leaving Sea of Thieves probably today after the Rhode Atheist program goes through. Very good to see you, Professor Solemn. Very good. Wait, are you not Professor? Are you one of his students? Actually, I don't remember if Solemn Senpai is Professor Solemn. Wait, is that? Wait, no. You did change it to Solemn Senpai. It is you, right? It is you. Yeah. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, awesome. William Brangham. All right, that is Jaden Edison of the Texas Tribune. Thank you so much for being here. Oh God, maybe I shouldn't have chosen an interview that they didn't. I love PBS. Listen, maybe this is what happens when you defund them. they have the run-on sentences from the interview that aren't cleaned up in the publication. All right, maybe reading this will give me less than an aneurysm. I have something phenomenal to share too. If it's better, I can send it to you privately. I mean, I'm on organization time right now. If it's related to your stream shit, you could definitely send it to me privately. You could also, when I'm streaming my own personal gaming stuff, you can share it then. I don't care. Joe might be like, why is this random guy in chat talking about game? Well, actually, you know what? No. Let him talk about his gaming. Let us talk with our friends here. It's fine. No, yeah, sure. Go ahead. BBC. Religion Now. As Texas makes Bible stories required reading in schools. Wait, I actually wanted to look something up from the 2016 APUSH drama. 2016 AP US History. Conflict? I don't know what to look for right now. Censoring? APUSH censoring? Apparently it was 2014. That's when I fucking graduated. I remember this fight back when I was in college. Webpage blocked. What the fuck? I'm being censored in real time. Well, maybe this 2015 CNN article will tell us. New APUSH teaching framework released after controversy. The College Board released its new APUSH teaching guidelines Thursday, following a year in which the previous frameworks... No problem, I just want to let you know about the big occurrence in Phoenixing. Yeah. Teaching guidelines Thursday, following a year in which the previous framework was attacked for being anti-American. Yeah, I want to see the 2014 articles. The 2015 APUSH course and exam description presents a clearer and more balanced approach to U.S. history, according to a statement from the College Board. The org is responsible for creating curriculum higher school students could take for potential college credit. I took APUSH before they fucking had a fucking tizzy fit about, oh, it's anti-American. You can't talk about how we killed the Native Americans. That's forbidden knowledge. You're not allowed to know about that because then you might hate your country. Because we think you're a baby brain like us. We think you can't have two thoughts in your head at the same time. Anyway, there are notable changes in guidelines for teaching about America's national identity, founding political leaders and documents, as well as its role in ending the Cold War. What was the problem with the teachings about the Cold War? I mean, I did APUSH in 2014, so what were they complaining about? I don't even remember that being a huge deal or, like, topic. I was like, look at all these bad... I mean, McCarthyism, yeah, but other than that... Did McCarthy have a point? Other changes... No, he didn't. He went about it the wrong way. Other changes include reducing expected learning objectives from 15 to 19, and clarifying content to be less open to misinterpretation and perceptions of imbalance. The changes are a response to the groundswell of criticism after the release of the 2014 framework. No more $5 vocab words on redesigned SAT exam. Well, I have a newfound hatred for vocab words this decade, so maybe I'd be okay with that. The College Board began updated guidelines in 2006 when APUSH teachers said there was not enough time to engage students in major topics. I believe that. Conservatives scrutinized 2014 edition for not being patriotic enough. I'm going to censor the words that almost came out of my mouth. Republican National Committee issued a resolution describing the framework as a biased and inaccurate view. They don't care about accuracy. Never let them fool you. They don't care about the inaccuracy of whether or not we did terrible things to the natives. That's not even a dispute that can be had. They just don't want to feel uncomfy on many important events in American history and calling on Congress to withhold federal funding from the College Board. American history is Johnny Appleseed, Tea in the Harbor, Brave Warriors, Three Great Awakenings. I don't even remember which ones those are. And the end of racism in 1865. That's all I ever learned in Southern history curricula. A joke. My AP US history class in 2014 in Rhode Island was actually pretty level-headed. It talked about the amazing stuff we did. It talked about how Andrew Jackson was a fucking psychopath. It started with how we came to this land and basically abused the fuck out of the natives. And then sometimes had some tribes you had good relations with. Like, what the fuck is the problem with teaching that? Like, are you like a fucking baby and you can't ever say anything bad about people who lived 200 years ago? Why do you give a fuck? What? Someone did something bad 200 years ago, but you can't talk about it because if you do, you might have fucking bad feelings about your country today? How stupid is that? It's so brain dead. Like, the commies who unironically believe that and the conservatives who are fucking afraid of that are both stupid. I'm sorry. The XNF, the atrocities hundreds of years and earlier this year are both in the past. And earlier there's... Well, we should absolutely be ashamed of the atrocities committed this past year. We should, and we should talk about it. And I look forward to the next couple years where conservatives tried to scrub those out of textbooks, even though they happened like a fucking year ago, right? A lot of people over-identify with their ancestors is really dumb. Yeah, I never got that. Listen, I think it's cool to have little, St. Patrick's Day every now and again. I have a side of the family who gets really into being Irish. Maybe because I never went there, I don't feel it like that. But I also feel that way about my immediate family. Like, they think sometimes because they're all religious, I get the feeling they think they own me and my beliefs. And I'm like, nah, man, we're different people. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Like, people over-identify with their ancestors. They also do that with, like, their family, where the response to me when I become an atheist is like, This family is Catholic. Are you crazy? Like, what the fuck does that have to do with my beliefs? Like, unironically, they believe that that's what you should do. That you should inherit your beliefs from mommy and daddy and never change your mind about anything. Obviously, that's how it should go. What, you're gonna think for yourself? What do you mean? Are you crazy? I hate the high think. I hate it. I hate it so much. But bro, that's most people. What am I gonna do? You know? Well, apparently it's 50% of the country. But anyway. An accurate view of many important events in American history. Examples: works cited crack pipe and calling on Congress to withhold federal funding from the College Board. Oh, this statement from the GOP isn't public anymore. That's actually a little bit surprising. Did they delete it because they knew they were fucking wrong? Anyway, I don't know why it's not there. A main critique was that the framework did not name important historical figures such as MLK Jr., Thomas Jefferson, or Benjamin Franklin. Did we not learn about Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin or MLK? I feel like we almost certainly did. Maybe I'm thinking of other U.S. history classes I took in high school. It's not like AP. It's not like APUSH was the only time we ever talked about American history in my high school history courses. I have to go. I ironically have my APUSH book notebook somewhere, so I could dig through and fact check this. But I don't know about that. I'm sure MLK was talked about. Thomas Jefferson probably breezed over. I mean, Benjamin Franklin was an important figure. He didn't write the Constitution. He's an interesting figure. I feel like there's so much important shit to go over at APUSH. These two, I would be shocked if we did not talk about them in 2014 when I was in APUSH, literally the year they're talking about. Texas was one of several states to propose legislation to change the framework. A state board of education member told CNN last year that the omissions could constitute a form of censorship and that smells of agenda. No shit. Conservative groups wanted a greater focus on American exceptional. You're only allowed to talk about how great we are, guys. Saying that the 2014 curriculum framework focused too heavily on the negative aspects of the country. Bro, everyone in the past, in the fucking early centuries of our founding, everyone was doing fucked shit. We can't be adults about this. Give me a fucking break. Go fucking suck your pacifier somewhere else. Not in my history class. Jesus fuck. College Board responded in a statement in September, saying critics were presenting their own agenda over the best interest of teachers and students. At the root, current objections to the highly regarded process is a blatant disregard for the facts. The College Board will not compromise the integrity of the advanced placement program. Based. They didn't, right? They didn't do that? In a separate letter, members of the Advanced Placement U.S. History Curriculum Development and Assessment Committee, that's a mouthful, said the critiques were a result of people interpreting the document as a rigid curriculum, not a guide for educators. Yeah, I was about to say, my teacher almost certainly talked about MLK. Give me a break. Like we would skip that one. The Wokies that we are, right? History teachers would know to include figures such as King or Jefferson in the appropriate lesson plans, I argued. I definitely remember us talking about Ben Franklin being a ladies' man in the year before APUSH in my junior year at history courses, and also him being, you know, was he not a diplomat for the French? Listen, I'm gonna get this wrong, and now people are gonna point to that and go, hey. Not officially, but he had good relations, right? Am I remembering this right? These and many other figures of U.S. history did not appear in the previous AP framework either. Yet teachers have always understood the need to teach them. College Board began listening feedback from teacher stories. Of course, you're not going to quell criticism. They don't actually have these well thought out constructive critiques that they want you to give in to conservative pressure, obviously. Oh my god. But what about our victories in the 2 world wars? I mean, yeah, we talked about World War II. Well, you just want us to glaze ourselves more? That's not very helpful or educational, now is it? Like, we should talk about them, obviously, but we already were. I promise we talked about World War II in AP US History. Did you know that we covered World War II in AP US History? What's wrong with people? Ben Franklin was, yes. Yeah. I thought so. Frederick Hess, director of education policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute and a former high school student, criticized 2014 framework for being dismissive of American economic success. The revision is correct, this, he says. Okay. That's fine. Look at this time where our economy is doing really well. I mean, that's fine in a vacuum to include, I guess. If that's the totality of your complaints. It's hard to read the thing and not come away satisfied that they have done not just a much better job, but a more thoughtful job. I think the result is something that is much more comprehensive. Okay, this guy doesn't seem like a total prick. He seems like he maybe had a constructive criticism. He wasn't one of the problem people. I think the result is something that is much more comprehensive, much more accurate, much less agenda-driven. The College Board's revisions remain a guide for teachers, not a set of lesson plans. I remember talking with, like, I had already graduated. I was in college. I remember, like, messaging my APUSH teacher about this. And he go, "Yeah, don't worry. We know what to do." Kind of a deal. I want to see, like, an article from 2014 about them. Oh, we got. This was just a quick breezing over my memory of that issue. Let's go to BBC. He was sent there during the war to schmooze, basically. Yeah. He was basically our most educated representative internationally. Oh, our best foot forward. Yeah, the ladies loved him. Remember that. And they remember the kite thing, guys? Guys, remember the kite thing? Teach more of the kite thing, guys. That's the important bits. You're missing out. Conservatives aren't being the adult children allegations. I know I'm one to talk. A Texas educational panel. Why did I insert the... A Texas education panel has approved plans to make Bible stories mandatory for all 5 million public school students in the state, sparking a row about separation of church and state. The required readings, which don't come into effect until 2030. Okay. So, like, how can this get reversed, I wonder? From the local Texas people, I guess. Include Bible passages about Adam and Eve from the book of Exodus. All right. Where God speaks to Moses through a burning bush. Genesis is when... okay. So, full disclosure, when I was still religious in the 6th grade, which is about the maturity level, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. In the 6th grade, I was still religious, and I decided I was going to read the Bible at night when my parents didn't know. I read through the entirety of Genesis, and it was literally all just, and this person lived to 700 years old, and then they did an animal sacrifice at this temple, and this is what this animal sacrifice looked like, and then they did this other animal sacrifice, and I was like, I finished Genesis, and I was basically like, what the fuck did I just read? That was a year before I became atheist, by the way. I wonder what caused that. But anyway, what interesting educational passages exist in Exodus about Adam and Eve? Also, why do they talk about Adam and Eve in Exodus? It's probably not. Listen, there are other atheists who are big into they've read the whole Bible front to back. They know all the passages to make fun of it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to pretend to be that guy to you right now. Is it not linear? Is Genesis about the beginning of the world, and then Exodus is about, like, the garden before the beginning of the world? Is it not, like, a linear thing, I'm assuming? And Rabbah begat Huphat, and Huphat begat Ashab, and Ashab begat... the long list of children. It's like, people ate this shit up 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. I'm sorry. I guess when you don't have television, this is the kind of boring drivel you read to take up your time. I feel like they must have had better books back then. I don't know what to tell you. I would almost rather read a philosophical text than I would rather read this. That's how bad it is. No hate, no hate. Where God speaks to Moses through a burning the burning bush story? Who the fuck cares? Okay. Very educational, by the way. I went to Catholic school. Like, I'm not impressed. The burning bush story is what you come up with? Why? For what? What are you supposed to take from that one? You're supposed to take the religion from that. It's not about any interesting concepts. Critics say the new reading requirements, which also include Dickens and Shakespeare. That's fine. I read fucking Dickens and Shakespeare. We need the Bible to do it either, bro. Infringe on religious freedom and lack of diversity. The Republican-controlled State Board of Education, this is what happens when you give conservatives power. They act like adult children. Approved the measure in a 9-5 vote, with one Republican joining Democrats to vote against it. We are bringing the Bible back into schools this week for the first time in 60 years, Brandon Hall, a Republican member of the Board of Education, said this week. Since the 60s? Okay. Supporters say school children ought to learn about Judeo-Christian traditions that they argue were essential to the nation's founding. Well, they would be fucking wrong. I'm going to pull up at the end of this James Madison quote saying how religion should have nothing to do with the fucking state. He wrote the Constitution, by the way. The thing that you pretend to care about. The new list establishes for the first time books that students across Texas must read. It includes English literature classics such as Dickens, Great Expectations. I read that. Do you need religion to do that? And Shakespeare's The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. I'm actually... Did they just include this as a... Well, this is not all they're doing. They're also doing this. Like, I don't know. My school is already teaching those two things. MLK... I've been to the mountaintop speech, and Margaret Thatcher's eulogy for President Ronald Reagan are also on the wider-ranging list. Didn't both these people suck? Anyway, but it is the mandatory... I meant Thatcher and Reagan, to be clear. But it is the mandatory religious texts that have drawn fierce opposition from education and civil liberties groups. Students will learn passages about Jesus in the New Testament and read the parable of the prodigal son under the curriculum. I'm not familiar with this one. I mean, I might be, but I don't remember the name of it. From when I was 12, I might have known that. Felicia Martin, executive director of Texas Freedom Network, a left-wing activist group, said ahead of the vote that the reading list centers Christianity among all other religious faiths and traditions. Well, it seems like they're saying that out loud, yes. It has a very Western... Oh my god. Does she hate the West? Why'd she have to do that one? She couldn't have focused on the Christians, trying to make everything about them. She has to hate the West, too. Oh, God, who is this? Let me be very clear to you. The West is awesome. You will never see me with all these socialists now who hate the West and want a multipolar world. You will never catch me shitting on Western civilization, ever. Just to be clear with you. Alright, this is going to be a personal time thing. Alright, anyway, let me get back to not being triggered by that. So glad I read the Burning Bush story as a kid to teach me about morality. Yeah, what the fuck are you getting from that? I'd be lost without it. If you don't listen to something that a Bush tells you about whether or not you should leave Egypt, how can you get through your life in today's America? It's like a guiding principle, you know? When a Bush tells you to escape your slave masters, you do it. I mean, I think that's a message we can take to heart today. Like, I don't understand why they wanted that passage specifically. By the way, this woman is right about this issue with the Christians forcing themselves upon other people. But as soon as I hear someone say, I don't like this Western sect, I've completely stopped listening to them. Just so we're clear. So take this one with a grain of salt. But that amidst the contributions and histories of Black, Brown, Indigenous people, yeah, you should talk about those. That's fine. You know those Black, Brown, Indigenous people lived in the West too, right? Of other religious faiths and traditions that are critical to the overall understanding of our history. Bro, all we need to do, just bring in the Satanic Temple, let them handle this. They will stop teaching the Bible day one, as soon as you also have to... I'm sorry, does the Satanic Temple have their own holy book? Do they have the Satanic Bible or some goofy shit like that? Whatever it is, I want you to bring it in immediately. Bring it in. John Brown was our burning bush in the way. Can you remind me who John Brown was? I don't actually remember. Others also raised concerns that the mandate risks undermining the independence of teachers to steer their classes. I'm sorry, I did not read that sentence right. It didn't even process. Others also raised concerns that the mandate risks undermining the independence of teachers to steer the class, of course. By the way, these same people who pretended, we don't want the Federal Education Board forcing themselves on what we teach in classrooms. It should be what the teachers, these same people who would also, I would say progressive states, because that term is kind of fraught now, in liberal states and blue states, go, we don't want the State Board of Education forcing their beliefs on our child. We want the teachers to decide. They never believe that, because when the shoe is on the other foot and they have power, they will absolutely force teachers to teach what they want them to. So never, ever let a dog shit, amoral, soulless conservative pretend to care about state or federal bodies forcing, education boards forcing things on teachers. Don't ever let them pretend to care about that, just to be clear. Texas teachers have expressed concerns about the length of the list and the potential loss of teacher autonomy in determining which works are appropriate and relevant for their own classrooms. Claire Hafner of the Texas Classroom Teachers Association told the BBC. Even though the board's final approval reduced the required list, the association says it remains too cumbersome. BBC contacted Texas State Board of Education for comment. Friday's approval was the latest example of moves by conservatives to bolster the presence of Christian beliefs in the Texas education system. I just cannot wait for the pendulum swing. What? I'm gonna redact what I was gonna go, the joke I was gonna tell there. Anyway. Last year, it became the largest U.S. state to require classrooms to display the Ten Commandments, biblical laws that some Christians believe God set for people. I mean, fuck, in Rhode Island and Cranston, the Alquists won that court litigation, didn't they? Someone needs to do the same thing here. And, of course, get that threats from all the very loving and peaceful Christians who are totally okay with their beliefs being questioned, by the way. Last year became the largest U.S. state to require classrooms to display the... Oh, I already read that. In April, a federal appeals court upheld the law mandating the display after a legal challenge. I am so interested in how that went. On Friday, Trump took credit for what he saw as spreading religious values in the U.S. Mr. Very religious man himself. Religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many years, he told a religious freedom event in D.C. Federal appeals court on Thursday narrowly upheld a Texas law. I don't care how narrow it is. It should have been fucking, I guess, 17-0 in the other direction. That requires public schools to display posters of the Ten Commandments in classrooms. By 9-8, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled that the law does not violate the separation of church and state, reversing two lower court decisions. The court also ruled the measure does not restrict parents' right to direct their children's religious upbringing. Well, guys, you just go home and then teach your kids whatever religion you want. What's the problem that's forced down their throat when they're in school for how many hours are kids in school a day? What, for me, it was like 7:30 to 1:45. It's like 6 hours. I don't know, 6 hours and change. Students are neither catechized. Really? What? Oh, I'm a moron. Do you see what I just tried to do there? Oh, God. But they want to instruct systematically in the principles of their religion. That's where they're going next. What do you mean? All right. Whoever that judge is who wrote that, subhuman. Anyway. On the commandments, nor taught to adopt them, nor are teachers commanded to proselytize. You're proselytizing by hanging it in the fucking building. If Rhode Island atheists went into a public school and hung some religion is bullshit fucking quote from some random guy from 100 years ago in the building, would that not be proselytizing? I think it would be, wouldn't it? Who asks about their displays or contradict students who disagree with them? Someone get the Satanists, all right? Literally, whatever goofy fucking Mojo Jojo fucking equivalent to a Ten Commandments thing that they have, hang it up in these public schools and then dare them to take it down and say, hey, we're not proselytizing. We just want children to be able to see this very interesting set of principles that we have. I'll have to tell you. Okay, I scrolled too far. The Texas law mandates the display. It has to be the conspicuous location, guys. In each classroom, it's not even a one thing on the school. It is in every fucking classroom. God damn, bro, I hope the fucking commies take over. I swear to fucking God. Sarcasm, by the way, sarcasm. Subhuman. In each classroom on a typeface visible from anywhere in the room. They're obsessed, bro. The posters must be at least 60. Oh my God, bro. I would go to jail over this. I would be proud to go to jail over something like this if I was a teacher. Schools are not required to purchase the posters. Literally, they're trying to be fucking Sharia law, Iran type shit. The beekeeper suits come next, I swear to God. But the Christian version, the nun outfits. Because they think they're so different. They want the same fucking thing. They complain about it, but they want the same fucking thing. Don't yell at me for the beekeeper comment. I won't care or listen to you. Schools are not required to purchase the posters, but they must accept donations of them. In separate rulings last year, 2 federal judges in the state sided with the challengers. So 2 federal judges sided with them, but this Fifth Circuit Appeals Court ruled down, saying the law likely violated the First Amendment. You don't say! Those rulings effectively blocked the law's enforcement across 24 Texas school districts, including in Houston and Austin. But the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, had encouraged school districts that had not been blocked to hang the Ten Commandments posters, threatening legal action against those that did not comply. January, the full appeals court heard arguments over Texas law, as well as a similar mandate passed in Louisiana in 2024. I need to stop doing that because my mic picks up every fucking thing I will ever do. I need to stop tapping my desk. My hands are here. In February, the court said it was premature to decide whether the Louisiana law was constitutional because it had not gone into effect. That decision cleared the way for Louisiana to enforce the law. Interesting. On Tuesday, Louisiana's Attorney General Liz Murrow celebrated the ruling, saying that it demonstrates that our law was always constitutional. You can hear every mouse scroll that I do. Every mouse scroll, dude. What does the Texas Tribune have to say about this? Jaden Edison. Oh, this is what PBS was quoting. They're discriminating against less well-endowed Jesus posters. 16 by 20 minimum is crazy. Yeah, wait, how big is that? That's fucking massive. I feel like they're compensating for something. Oh yeah, I'm sure the Satanists are already on it. I mean, I saw the Satanic Temple was doing something. Hold on, let me find this shit. Satanic Temple, Texas. But I won't say it. I was kind of hoping for them to get in there and display something on the school, but it didn't sound like they were doing anything like that. With the Texas State Board of Education's sweeping efforts to push Christian teachings, I don't actually care in this scenario because anyone who's fighting against this is fine by me. Is this the satanic organization that's like fake Satanists who are just all atheists who are trying to troll Christians, which is based? Or are these like actual like LARPing, they believe in Satan people? Like, because normally I'd be like, cringe, bro. But at this point, I don't give a fuck. Whoever takes this down is fine in my book. Yeah, my favorite thing religious Westerners do is take credit for the social advancements and liberalization of our society that they throughout history have fought tooth and nail to prevent. Exactly. They're always the problem people. And then when history moves past them and they're like traditionalist or they're their more bigoted beliefs, let's be honest, they pretend like they were always on that team the entire time. Oh no. We never hated gay people. Nah, bro. We're just concerned about trans and kids. They're concerned about gay people still. They just know that they're in an unpopular spot and they can't say it out loud. Except there are, I don't mean to say that every religious organization is like that, because there are staunchly pro LGBT churches out there who will fly the pride flag and be very proud of it and shit. I'm sorry, I'm trying to scratch this dirt off my desk. I know that's causing an avalanche in your ears right now, which is apparently something I cannot solve with the current boom arm I have. But anyway. With the Texas State Board of Education's sweeping efforts to push Christian teachings into public education, including the newly approved mandatory K-12 reading list that forces public school students to read specific Bible passages, and the state-incentivized Bluebonnet learning curriculum being adopted by major districts like Houston ISD, we know many families are deeply concerned about state overreach. Texas public schools are systematically blurring the line between church and state, but you do not have to let them compromise your family's religious freedom. Thanks to the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Mahmoud v. Taylor, public schools cannot legally force your child to participate in an instructional curriculum that violates your sincerely held religious beliefs. The highest court in the land has made it clear you have an absolute right to opt out. They made it clear for now. The new one might reverse that, unfortunately. Don't hold your fucking breath. The Satanic Temple's Satanic Representation Campaign is actively finalizing specific opt-out resources. Yeah, this is what I saw them. They're finalizing opt-out resources. I was kind of hoping for, like, we're going to put our own display on public schools and dare them to take it down, but apparently not, you know. It's kind of different because it was a state law that put the Ten Commandments in there. What, are they going to get a state law putting the satanic whatever in there? I don't think so. But, like, I hope they figure something out. They should sue the school to be able to, or something, or to sue the state to be able to. Whatever. Is this the same thing that we were reading from? Mandated Bible stories, a reading list, revamp history for Texas public schools approved. State board approved the reading list and K-8 social studies changes after months of debates. I thought, am I crazy or did this guy downplay it? No, I probably misunderstood what I was clicking on. Texas will require Bible story. Texas will require Bible stories in public schools after the State Board of Education approved a mandatory reading list Friday alongside a rewrite K-8 social studies lessons that minimize racial, geographical, cultural diversity. Republican-led board passed the mandated Christian stories in public school lessons on a 9-4 vote along party lines. 2 members not present for the vote. Vote for your local people, assholes. Not just the fucking president that matters, did you know? The revamped social studies lessons, which required separate votes for each grade, and not just your federal representatives either, also passed. The board postponed changes to 4 high school courses, which members will vote on at a future meeting. This week's meetings ran as late as 2 a.m., with the members meticulously parsing through changes to lessons in each grade. Some of the nearly 500 speakers who addressed the board exchanged heated words about Christianity's role in the development of the country. And at least one person with a Confederate flag was deemed out of order by the board chair and escorted from the room for verbally interrupting the meeting. The guys who won couldn't even keep the meeting orderly, by the way. You know which side the Confederate guy was on, right? You don't even have to ask, do you? Interesting how that works, isn't it? Statewide reading list requires, among other literary works, that schools teach Bible material to children as young as 6 years old, up to young adults preparing to receive their diplomas. Includes Christian stories about Adam and Eve, 8 Beatitudes, and the parable of the prodigal son. I don't even. It's been since I was 12. I don't remember what those last 2 are, nor do I fucking care. You know what? Fuck it. Where are the 8 Beatitudes? Tell me. John Carney never looks at Facebook chat. I was born in the 50s. 53 minutes ago. Sorry, Madeline. There is a way to compare evolution and creation. Ryan, our own Ryan Fleming. Yeah. Creationism is a belief people have. Evolution is one of the most rigorously tested sciences. This is backed up by mountains of evidence and is scientific fact. Sorry, I wasn't looking at Facebook chat because I have all my other chats in this one view, so clicking into the other one, it's a whole thing. 8 Beatitudes. I should have someone who sits on Facebook chat and then feeds it to me in YouTube or Kick or Twitch chat. And then I would just see all of them in one place. That would be based. It'd be pretty boring work for the other person, but it would be based. 8 Beatitudes are a set of blessings delivered by Jesus during the Sermon on the Mount. Gospel of Matthew serve as a core ethical framework for Christian living, outlining virtues that lead to spiritual blessedness. Let's see how many of these virtues are things that conservative Christians have never had in their entire lives. Represent a reversal of worldly values, focusing on spiritual values and divine promises. Poor in spirit, humility and reliance on God. I would argue they don't have humility. They would obviously disagree. Mourn, finding comfort in God. I mean, it's pretty fucking vague. You take it any way you want, literally. Meek, gentleness and patience. Not the average loudmouth conservative, so they fail that test. Hunger and thirst for righteousness, a deep longing for justice and holiness. This is what they use to fuel their crusades against people who don't believe just like them. So I guess they technically they get that one. Merciful, extending compassion and forgiveness. That's only if you join the Trump camp, so I don't know if that counts. I don't know if I believe that about them. Pure in heart, sincerity, they lie like they breathe. Integrity and focused devotion. They are very focused, this is true. Peacemakers, actively building harmony. I don't think so, buddy. Persecuted, enduring a hardship. This is the one that they love the most. They are professional persecuted people. They are professional victims. They do get that one. They do get that one. I'm sorry, what's the parable of the prodigal son? From Luke! Famous story about a father who forgives his wayward son. I think I remember this one vaguely, but don't remember any of the details. Loving father, rebellious younger son, and resentful older son. Young son takes inheritance early, leaves home, travels to a distant country, wastes all his money on reckless and extravagant living. Severe famine strikes. He runs out of money. Forced to take humiliating job feeding pigs. Starving, he returns home. Asks for forgiveness and a job from his father as a hired servant. While the son was still away, the father saw him. He was filled with compassion. The father runs to him, embraces him, and kisses him. Before the son can even apologize, the father orders his servants to bring out the finest robe, a ring for his finger, and sandals for his feet. He throws a celebratory feast, declaring the son was dead but now is alive again, was lost but now is found. And the older brother is ass mad. He had stayed home, worked hard, and obeyed his father. He's out in the fields. He comes to the party, discovers what's happened, and refuses to join the party. He complains his father never threw a feast for him. The father gently reminds the older son of their close relationship, saying, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours," but insists they must celebrate that his brother has returned. That's fine. Like, not being jealous of others. Maybe the father's a little too forgiving in this story. Not that being forgiving is a trait that conservative Christians are very known for. At least not the louder ones. There should be, I mean, to be fair, the young son did have to pay a bit of a price for his fucking around and finding out, so you could maybe say his time was served. I don't know. I mean, it's not terrible to teach fables. It's just that they only want them because it's their religion's fables. That's kind of the problem. Anyway, students, educators, and progressive activists spoke out in opposition to the lack of racial, ethnic, and gender inclusion in debated books and lessons, as well as the state's Christian focus over other religions. I mean, I wouldn't even word it like this. I think when you fight against things like this, you have to word it in a way that's not soy. Like, you should be able to talk about us abusing Native Americans, period. You should be able to talk about women, period. Like, saying gender inclusion, like, I think trans people became a publicly known thing in the general consciousness in, like, when I was in college. So saying it like this is sounding like you're trying to force something that's not relevant to the time period into. I would just not be soy when I fight against this. That's all I'm saying. Rachel Laser, president and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, criticized the reading list adoption statement Friday, saying Texas should not force. If you ever find yourself dipping into vocab to state your position, you're doing it wrong. Like, if it has to be the, like, memorized, I am a left progressive person, here are my vocab words that I use, stop. You're losing people. Just talk like a normal person. Some people have a hard time with that, and I don't know why. Saying Texas should not force public school students to learn the Bible. Obviously. This policy is part of a... Also, it's not that someone decided to talk about the parable of the prodigal son. Although, why would that even be in AP U.S. history? Or no, they're not talking about U.S. history. They're talking about in general, right? I kind of made a tangential reference to that, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about education in general. I don't know why. Anyway, it's not just about that one person, one teacher decides, oh, I want to talk about the parable of the prodigal son. It's that the state said you must teach this Bible story. That's what's fucking creepy and weird about it. And their intentions are very clear and malicious. This policy is part of a broader movement, Laser said, to misuse public schools to impose one narrow set of religious beliefs and indoctrinate a new generation of Americans in the lie that America is a Christian country, which they are obsessed with. English teachers stressed during the meeting that many of the books on the proposed reading list do not align with what Texas requires them to teach, despite taking up most of roughly 36 weeks of instructional time in an academic year. Jeez. So they're wasting their time as well to teach other things and teaching these things instead. That's doubly annoying. I don't know why I thought this article was something else. This article is very good. It was one of these articles, maybe. That was like, oh, it's not that bad. Whoever that is, should probably fucking be dragged out into the street in a video game, but that's besides the point. I'll go look at that later. When we teach classical literature and social studies with biblical foundations. I'm sorry, the reading list will take effect in 2030-2031 school year. Board will vote Friday to phase in the reading and social studies changes over multiple years rather than introduce them at once. Hopefully that gives us time to knock it down, if that's even a thing that can happen at this point. When we teach classical literature and social studies with biblical foundations, we're not simply preserving great books, said Dawn Hatley, Lubbock resident who just testified earlier in the week. We're helping raise young men and women who love truth, pursue wisdom, and recognize God's hand throughout history and human experience. You should be in a home. Texas parents could opt their children out of any instruction, but state education officials announced earlier this year that those students could still be tested on it. Sue, you're telling me that I can opt my kid out of religious instruction in his fucking 4th grade classroom, but he's still going to fail a test that's going to affect his grade that's based on it? I would be in this school every single day. I would make it my life's work to make every single scum-sucking, I had to censor myself, scum-sucking parasite who worked in that school building miserable every single day. That would be me. I would be the atheist version of the anti-vax parent. I would get arrested making these people miserable. If I had the children in these schools. If I had a child in these schools. I can't even talk. Cool. During the week, the board members, led by Republican Tom Maynard, debated whether they should prohibit teachers from assigning non-state mandated book reviews, mandated books without the educators first posting them online for parental review. Oh, so now we only get to teach the state-mandated ones because the other ones have to be approved by dumbass parents. However, some expressed concerns about micromanaging teachers. You think? Why can't we just let the parents choose the books? I would kill myself as a teacher if I was one. Well, I've heard stories. Let's just say that. All I'm gonna say is I've heard stories. I might know a couple. I might have known a couple of teachers in my time. Well, others noted that state law already imposes strict requirements on reading material in schools. The members considered whether to grant charter schools Oh, the poor charter schools. Let them do what they want. Flexibility in which grades they can introduce the required readings, an attempt to appease charter leaders who said they wanted to assign more rigorous books to children in lower grades. What does that mean? Because the state mandated ones weren't rigorous enough, or which way are they going on this? But some members said doing so might create the opposite effect, allowing lower performing campuses to lessen rigor for students in higher grades. You don't say! Neither of those passed. Reframing history, along with mandatory Bible stories and reading, the social studies proposal features a dramatic transformation in how Texas schools have long administered lessons on history, geography, economics, and government. It eliminates the current 6th grade world cultures course, de-emphasizes world history outside of European tradition, and dedicates more focus to Texas and the United States. Democrats suggested changes they hope would make lessons more accurate and inclusive of historically underserved groups, most notably people of color. Even if they ultimately did not favor the overall plan, the board approved changes to K-8 and some high school courses, but it postponed rewrites to U.S. history, world history, geography, and government. Republicans blamed cherry picking over what students could learn for the delay. What students should learn for the delay. Whatever. We wasted many hours late into the morning, Republican board member Jackass Hall said. We have worn out and exhausted our staff on trifling amendments coming from people who had no intention of ever working with us. The idea that those words are coming out of his mouth, subhuman, or ever actually approving something they want to pass. Because you shouldn't be doing this in the first place! Parasite? Conservative leaders and activists champion the new lessons, which they view as the final battle. I have bad news for you. In the push to rid Texas schools of instruction, they say paints America in a negative light and trains students to hate the country. You're making us hate you right now. What are you talking about? Sociology, this will make it better. This will make us like you more. Sociology classes, for example, currently require students to understand the impact of race and ethnicity on society and analyze the varying treatment patterns of minority groups. But that standard was eliminated in the newly proposed. You can't, even the social studies courses, the sociology people, they can't talk about that either. What's the point? For months, educators, Democrats, and public education advocates criticized Texas social studies revamp as rushed. Conservative advocates and Republican board members insisted on pushing the process forward. But board chair Ann Kinsey expressed doubts Thursday about having enough time to cut down the number of lessons packed into each course. That led to the group delaying changes to the 4 high school classes. This is a conundrum we created of our own doing, Democratic member Marisa Perez-Diaz said. I'm very frustrated by it. This is a doozy. We're going to make it through, don't worry. Kinsey rejected an assertion from Perez-Diaz that he rushed the process and said he was willing to continue working. But he also said board members made mistakes when they pushed through changes during late hours. For example, they eliminated a requirement that students learn about the American Revolution in high school U.S. history before reinserting it. These are the Patriots, by the way. I'm just saying. Educators criticize how the social studies process prioritizes memorization over critical thinking. That's fine. That's a fine criticism. And simplification over accuracy. I mean, you need to be able to memorize a little bit, I would say. Probably a little bit, maybe a little bit. That's a treat. Simplification over accuracy. That sounds bad, like in general. Historians call attention to factual errors, saying the new standards would set children up for failure post-graduation. Good. Texas 0 days since being a national embarrassment. Let's make that more publicly known. Oh, you came from Texas, so you are going to fucking fail every history class I give to you. Okay. Sorry, you can't come to this college. Maybe then they'll change their mind. Or they'll get worse. It's not going to actually be that extreme. But maybe a little bit. I feel bad for the kid, but not for the state. One lesson, for example, had described the forced relocation and imprisonment of Japanese. They don't want to talk about Japanese they want to talk about World War II and how victorious we were, but they don't want to talk about Japanese internment. Maybe if we interned them, they would feel differently about it. What was that representative's name again? Are any of these Japanese internment sites, like, preserved? Maybe we should just send them on a little field trip. Maybe then when it happens, it's everything with these conservatives. Once it happens to them, they'll start to care about it. So just send all of these fucking Christian nationalist Texas representatives to internment camps for maybe a couple months, and maybe they'll change their fucking tune. If I was dictator for a day. One lesson, for example, quote me on that, had described the forced relocation and imprisonment of Japanese families during World War II as one of the contributions to America's military effort. Okay, so they talk. Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't even get through the sentence. I was so mad. So let me clarify what he actually said. What the Republicans act. They didn't not talk about Japanese internment. They said it was a they were imprisoned against their will. No, this was just a contribution to the military effort. Why was it only the Japanese people? No reason. Interesting. Also, we didn't care about, were there not a lot of German immigrants here? Very interesting that the Japanese are the ones who were singled out. I'm sure that was for no reason though. I don't know if I ever thought about that before until until just now. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. Maybe there weren't a lot of Germans here. Japanese versus German immigrants in America during World War II. I mean, are a lot of people coming here from Germany? Because we interned 120,000 Japanese Americans. We only ever went after German Americans if it was like an individual thing where they were suspected of doing some shit. How many Japanese versus German immigrants were in America in World War II? There are 1.2 million German immigrants. And there were only 127,000 Japanese immigrants? There's no way that's right. There's no fucking way. I don't believe you. That's... No wonder why they don't want to teach that. That number sounds so low. Densho Encyclopedia? There was less than 20% as many... No, less than 10% as many... Wait, I'm sorry. Was it 1.2? No. There was between 10 to 20%. The number of Japanese people in America during World War II and the number of German people in America during World War II. There were only 10% as many Japanese people as Germans, but we still targeted the Japanese people. Hello, Dennis Paco. The German language was basically bullied out of the German American population during World War I and World War II. I mean, you shouldn't bully their language out. It's just interesting how we seem to target the Japanese a little bit more. Much of the Midwest and Plain states are very, very German and Northern European. We did intern some of them. To be fair, we did intern some of them. About 11K of them. But there's 1.2 million of them. And there's only 127K Japanese people here. But we target the Japanese people. Why? Because they weren't as white? Is that literally the reason? Obviously, what am I asking as if I don't know the answer? I changed my mind. You're allowed to be soy. One lesson, for example, I described the forced relocation and imprisonment of Japanese families during World War II as one of the contributions to America's military effort. I will not Fed post an Rhode Atheist podcast. I will not Fed post an Rhode Atheist podcast. Another proposal noted that high school students should know the significance of leaders in the civil rights movement, specifying Thurgood Marshall, that sounds familiar, Barbara Jordan, that sounds less familiar, and Hector Garcia, but not MLK. I don't even know who this asshole is. He's probably a great man. I'm sorry. Okay. The standards initially approved this week reflect slightly different suggestions, instead describing Japanese incarceration as one of the changes during the war, and adding King to the list of civil rights leaders. Oh yes, it was just a change. Normal change. But Democratic board members said the minor tweaks will not fix what they see as a whitewashed social studies plan and a politically influenced approval policy. I don't even like the term. No, I do like the term whitewashed. It's good. 2 reasons. They weren't white, and it's easier to attack smaller population. Oh, yep, that is true. You see it mimicked in how the Trump administration attacks smaller, more vulnerable migrant populations. Yeah, like the whoops, I didn't mean to click that. Like the in Minneapolis, was it not Somalis? I neither remember nor care. By the way, the ICE went to Minneapolis and murdered those 2 people because and I'm not. Listen, I have my own history here. I'm not saying that to deride the kid. A mentally not all there conservative YouTuber who was pushed by the Republican operatives there to go film inside of administrative buildings for health agencies and asking the question, why are there no kids here? Because he's a fucking moron who doesn't know that an administrative office doesn't provide healthcare to you directly. And going to daycares at times where they were listed as closed, and going to a daycare that had already been shut, because of that brain dead YouTube video farce caused ICE to go down there. What does benevolent mean? I don't remember what that's a reference to. I didn't know this. I was gonna get so fucking mad today. I knew I was gonna get a little annoyed, but a panel of 9 advisors guided the social studies overhaul, almost all of whom hold no Texas K-12 classroom experience, and several of whom are either conservative activists or closely affiliated with them. Educators have described it as a major reversal of previous years when teachers led the way, while Democrats have said they do not feel fairly included in decision making. Our voices are being left off constantly, Democratic board member Tiffany Clark said. We need power. I don't know what to tell you. Republicans clarified that when Republicans aren't adults, you need more Democrats. So I don't know what to tell you. Republicans. Did Nick Shirley say what does benevolent mean or something? What's the background to that? But Republicans clarified that advisors only provide recommendations. Elected members maintained final say in the social studies overhaul, they noted. The GOP members argued that it is Democrats' own responsibility to ensure they are included in the rewrite. I, as well as several of my colleagues, have been in direct contact with our content advisors, Republican member Audrey Young said. I have been communicating through my content advisor this entire time. Nick Shirley was confused about the word benevolent when Callahan said it in this Channel 5 interview of him. Oh, what is that word? Well, yeah, he wasn't a very smart guy. I don't even think that's the, ripest thing to make fun of him for. That he doesn't know what the word benevolent means. I mean, it is kind of ironic that he doesn't know what the word benevolent means, seeing as he isn't benevolent. I mean, that is funny. But I would just pick apart his video and make fun of that. I feel like that's more ripe for how stupid he is. I, as well as several of my colleagues, have been in direct contact with our content advisors. Republican member Audrey Young said, I have been communicating through my content advisor this entire time. Some of the appointed experts also expressed frustrations. Yolanda Chavez Leva, a historian at the University of Texas at El Paso, helping guide the board, said she didn't feel that every advisor's input was treated equally. You don't say. Kate Rogers, a social studies advisor who previously led the Alamo Trust before publicly clashing with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, said the group remained professional, but its recommendations did not represent all participants. For instance, the advisory panel proposed changing a lesson that originally called on students to identify domestic challenges for the United States following World War I, related to racial violence and intolerance, including the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan and the Tulsa Race Massacre. Elon on the mind, apparently. They instead suggested that students learn about the Klan's intolerance of Catholics, Jews, and immigrants, but did not specify black. You mean the main one? But what about how mean they were to Catholics? They also chained the Tulsa Race Massacre to the Tulsa Race Riots. Because they want to blame the black people for it, by the way, in case you didn't pick up, because the term race riot makes you think, if you didn't catch that. During the 1921 massacre in Oklahoma, a white mob killed black residents, destroyed their homes, and looted their businesses after a black teenager was falsely accused of trying to assault a white girl in an elevator. That happened today. I wonder how that would play out. The appointed group also removed standards that define racial segregation as. I mean, we're heading that way at this point. The appointed group also removed standards that define racial segregation as keeping people apart based on the color of their skin. How else would you define it? I don't want to know. And specified that Africans endured slavery in the U.S. because of their race. They took out that part, by the way. They took out this part because I read it in a disjointed way in case you were confused. Amazing. I wanted to make it clear to the board members that we did not discuss every item on this document. Some of the changes were not reviewed by all the content advisors. I wonder why. Tesla Model X. Board members adopted many changes proposed by the advisory group, but reinserted several others, including how Nat Turner's rebellion heightened sectional tensions and deepened disagreements over slavery, and how the expansion of slavery was the central cause of the Civil War. They also clarified that the Klan sought to intimidate and limit the rights of African Americans in Texas during Reconstruction. Some members, how far away from the end? Okay, cool. Some members have initiated changes that would expose students to more positive aspects of Black history, including Republican Kevin Ellis' suggestion that schools teach about Bessie Coleman, the Texan who became the first African American and Native American woman to obtain an international pilot's license. On the contrary, Republicans eliminated standard, specifying that students should consider the perspectives of groups whose voices are less represented in traditional historical accounts. They removed the mandate that students learn about Henry Flipper, the first black graduate of West Point. They added another requirement that introduces the biblical story of Moses alongside the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman, who was nicknamed Moses because, similar to the prophet, she helped people escape slavery. So that's how they worked Moses in. Okay. Is that where the burning bush came into play? Very important section, by the way, that you need to learn. I know you want to talk more about Harriet Tubman, an actual person who actually freed slaves. The Jewish people, by the way, my understanding is that the biblical story of the Jews being enslaved in Egypt, there's no actual historical record. There's historical records of things like a guy named Jesus existing, but not of the Jews being enslaved in Egypt. That didn't happen. Now, has Egypt been kind to the Jews in the past? No, it hasn't. But that's not the point here. So it's very funny that we get to talk less about the actual people in the Underground Railroad and more about Moses because, well, he freed slaves. That's cute. I like that a lot. That's sarcasm. Republican leaders across the state, meanwhile, often depict Islam as a violent religion they view as incompatible. But you want to be guys, you want to be so much like them. What do you mean? If Islam was less associated with brown people, every fucking Republican would be dropping and becoming a Muslim, unironically. I swear to God. Often depict Islam as a violent religion they view as incompatible with their conservative Christian American values. But then they copy every single fucking thing they do. During the board's April meetings, the board eliminated a social studies standard that would have required students to learn about Muslim contributions to algebra and astronomy. Don't you dare bring up our Arabic character. What is it? Arabic character. Why can't I think of the word Arabic alphabet? What am I trying to think of right now? Remember that actually unironically came up, and dumbass uneducated people thought they were teaching some like Arabic letters, but we were talking about like the alphabet that we use. Remind me what I'm trying to think of right now, because apparently it's escaped my brain. Someone will know it. So insane that we have to say no, millions of people didn't part a fucking sea and walk away from servitude to one of the most preeminent powers of the era. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy how that wasn't a true story. You know, I sort of believed it. What do you mean? Sounds like something that happened. The funny thing is, it's not even a metaphor. It just didn't happen at all. Cool. To be clear, the Jewish people were persecuted for their entire history, but this particular instance is not very well documented. It doesn't seem like it actually happened. I don't think the Pharaoh was there making the Jews do move sandstone or whatever the hell it's called. Just doesn't seem to have been borne out. In case you, ironically, I figured that there was actually some historical basis to that story. I was under the impression that like there was some, obviously it didn't happen the way the Bible said, but that it was something that happened until like I started reading about Israel Palestine like in 2023, and then I realized that story that's not actually part of their history. And that I have to thank my fucking Catholic education for that, I guess, for inserting that fake story into my fucking brain, which is apparently what Texas is trying to do here. Whatever. I'm not mad about being lied to my whole life at all. I'm very mad. Don't care for it. They approved a lesson this week that requires students to learn about the Prophet Muhammad in the context of brutal military campaigns against Jewish and Christian tribes, and the normalization of slavery and the taking of female captives as harem slaves. Oh, so you want to talk about other people enslaving people, but when we want to talk about us enslaving people, you're very shy about it, huh? Interesting how that works. Literal adult children. Let me be very clear. Islam is not a religion. Oh, so something's not a religion if you think it's bad? That must be how you convince yourself that Christianity is all well and good. It's just very interesting to me. Islam is bad, has terrible beliefs. It's not a religion. Because a religion can never have terrible beliefs, now can it? Very interesting the thought process here. State Senator Bob Hall, R. Edgewood, Republican from Edgewood, I guess, testified before the Education Board Monday. Is a totalitarian theocracy, correct? Not unlike totalitarian systems of communism, has nothing to do with communism. Nazism, nothing to do with, well, they did, actually that one guy did work with the Nazis, didn't he? Muhammad al not Asani. What was that guy's name? What was the Palestinian nationalist guy's name who literally was working with the Nazis and made a radio show for him? Does anyone remember this guy's name? None of the socialists will remember. And globalism. I don't think Islamic theocracies like globalism very much. Aren't they kind of isolationist like all the other freaks of the world? The man just compared free trade and international law to Nazism and Islam, I guess. These people aren't human beings. I'm sorry. Asked if he had ever visited a Muslim majority country, the senator was obviously not. Even the ones we're friends with, bro. Elizabeth Jensen, who identified herself as a Texas school board trustee but did not specify the district, told the education panel that she believes slavery was and still is fundamental to Sharia. But then you don't want to talk about it related to what we did? Uh, I'm sorry, is every Muslim majority country like enslaving people? I'm not going to pretend to be the Muslim expert, bro, but somehow I'm not sure if that's true. Referring to the set of moral codes and principles that Muslims follow. Sharia does not have a uniform meaning. Yeah, there's like different versions of it you can follow. I remember as Muslims interpret and apply it differently. I'm not doing a fucking Sharia law deep dive right now. Are they called hadiths? I don't remember this. I'm not even going to try to talk about it. Muslims have spent months denouncing such Islamophobia at State Board of Education meetings, calling it misinformation and harmful to the hundreds of thousands of Texans who practice the faith. These proposed standards actually defy the Constitution. Obviously, they don't give a fuck about the Constitution. You thought conservatives cared about the Constitution? Do you also think they care about patriotism? That's funny. And highlight only one group of Americans as the founders who built the country to the exclusion of others, both in the past and in the present. Ruth Nasrallah, a Muslim speaker, told board members during public testimony, prior to debating high school social studies, a handful of Republicans on the elected board unsuccessfully attempted to block amendments from members who did not meet an earlier deadline to submit proposed changes. If successful, the move effectively would have stopped Democrats from proposing on-the-spot tweaks, which is notable because the rule had not been enforced when the board discussed elementary and middle school lessons. Members could take up the remaining high school courses at its next scheduled meeting in September, or the chair could schedule a special meeting before then. I don't want to be too redundant. Okay, so we have an asshole here. We have an opposing view. It depends. Traditional Islam and Christianity are kind of imperial religions, obviously. Created for empires, yep. Seemingly for the purpose of mass control. Who would have thought? They follow a different pattern than most religions. Is there another example of a religion that was like that? If I see a single socialist say Israel, I will actually jump out of my window on stream. AI viewers, stream mode. Okay, well, let's ban that bot. Premarital correspondent Y0. Let me ban that real quick. Yeah. Banned, reported, unfollowed. What was that thing that Robotnik said at the end of Sonic 3? Reported, unfollowed, blocked. No, don't make him a mod. Did they change the UI on this? I'm trying to moderate this asshole, and it made him a mod for a second. I had to take it out. Ban. Okay, I can ban them. Where's the report button? Is there no more report button? Is it on the hamburger button? No. There's no more report button. Oh, that's nice. Who wanted those? Who wanted to report bots anyway? Wow, Twitch is such a dog shit website. Is DJ Clancy out yet? If Hassan goes to prison, I will throw a party at my house, and every one of you is invited. Anyway, it's the only good thing that Trump could possibly do. Texas schools will teach the Bible. It's not controversial. Texas' new K-12 curriculum will require students to read the Bible alongside its Constitution and Shakespeare. We already read the Constitution, asshole. Why are you including that to make it sound better? The bigger issue isn't the Bible; it's the state's reading and math scores, and the Bible is going to help the state's reading and math scores, I guess. All right, Nicole Russell. Let's see. Did Lindsey Graham die right after visiting Ukraine? Isn't he one of the more pro-Ukraine people? Makes you think. Not that Ukraine did anything to be clear. We'll have to see. Very random illness. I mean, he wasn't that young, but he wasn't that old. You know what I'm saying? I find it hard to believe. Shouldn't it be controversial to teach American kids at public school about the Bible? An extraordinary, timeless work of history. Yes, I remember how timeless it was when I was reading Genesis, like the list of every fucking child of every fucking random asshole and every fucking animal sacrifice they did. It was very timeless. I have to agree. Moral teaching in certain parts. Oh yeah, my favorite moral teaching is the story of Abraham, where the father does right by God by preparing and almost killing his child for literally no fucking reason other than to prove his loyalty. That's the kind of morality I like to instill in my 4th grade American students. And literature. That's one word for it. But that's exactly, I wonder what those guys were high on when they wrote it. But that's exactly what's coming for Texas kids in K through 12, I'm like Dan Saltman over here, public schools. And the plan has already stirred real controversy among parents, educators, and other concerned citizens. In meetings leading up to their June 26th vote, members of the Texas State Board of Education heard from nearly 500 speakers weighing in on a proposal to add the Bible and other classic works of literature, along with the rewrite of the state's social studies lessons, to the K-12 curriculum's reading list. The changes are part of a broader review of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, the state standards that spell out what students must learn in school. The new statewide reading list would require students to read about Adam and Eve, the 8 Beatitudes, the parable of the prodigal son, among other things. The board also eliminated the 6th grade world culture scores and removed content about how race and ethnicity have negatively affected society. Those changes won't take effect until the 2030-31 school year. So she's defending the inclusion of the Bible stuff. Is she also going to defend eliminating the world cultures course and the race and ethnicity stuff? I'm surprised she brought it up in the first place. Oh, she's a sociopath. What was I thinking? As a former homeschooling mom, she's literally a demon. What was I thinking? I was like, wow, is she actually going to give some sort of nuanced view on this? Maybe we should have let Mexico take Texas back. Sarcasm. I always found alcohol boring. I wish I was a drinker right now to get through this. As a former homeschooling mom with 3 kids now in Texas public schools, I think cutting the world cultures course in favor of more Texas-focused history. Wow, you're calling your own people uncultured? Wow. Way to diss yourself, dumbass. And stripping out content on race and ethnicity is a mistake. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I take it back. I saw that going in a completely different direction. I read slightly ahead and I lost my mind. But I don't have a problem with portions of the Bible being taught in public schools. In Texas or anywhere else. And that's not just because I'm a Christian mom. It is, by the way, if you were a Jewish mom or a Muslim mom or a Hindu mom, you would not be writing this article. I don't know why you're pretending otherwise. The only question is she stupid enough to... Why is that X? Is she stupid enough to be lying to herself, or is she just lying to us? The Bible is a significant historical, literary, and religious text. One of those 3 is certainly true. It's almost impossible to understand our nation's beginning. Possible. This lady homeschooled her kid in history? I don't know if I'd word it like that. Impossible to understand? There's a lot. I would say there was a lot of knowledge to shift through. There's a lot of crazy things that happen. Impossible to understand our nation's beginning. Yeah, maybe for someone like you. Let alone religion, philosophy, politics, art, or literature. What did that have to do with the beginning of the sentence? Without understanding the Bible. Kill me, dude. They weren't quoting Abraham when they were writing the Constitution, talking about right to life, liberty, and property. They did reference God a couple times. You are right about that. It has shaped human history in unfathomable ways. We sure those were positive? Seems like such common sense to me that I'm not sure why the Texas Board of Education, made up of 10 Republicans and 5 Democrats, devoted so much time to debating it. Why was there even a debate, guys? Especially when Texas K through 12 schools ranked 29th nationally, far lower than they should have given the state's size and resources. Texans, including students, educators, and activists, gave public testimony before the board's final vote, arguing that forcing students to read religious texts violates the separation of church and state. Or that it indoctrinates students into one religion, Christianity. You mean the one that you are, and one of the book that we're discussing right now? These proposed standards actually defy the Constitution and highlight only one group of Americans as the founders who built the country to the exclusion of others, both in the past and the present. Ruth Nasrallah, Muslim speaker, told board members. This list is full of Christian texts that are inappropriate for public school classrooms, Joshua Bixler said. As a rabbi and a parent of Jewish kids, see, if you were a Jewish or a Muslim person, you wouldn't be writing this article. It is because you're a fucking Christian mom. And you're also a fucking psychopath who homeschooled your kids, so I know you're a fucking weirdo. As a rabbi and a parent of Jewish kids, I think it is vital that this board make a distinction between teaching about religion and teaching religion. Exactly. This list will force teachers to cross that line. I support Texans' right to weigh in on curriculum decisions throughout a democratic deliberation. If the board wanted to ward off criticism about indoctrination, it should have considered adding passages from other religious texts, such as the Quran. But you're not mad they didn't, are you? They both were taught. The real meme is the Satanic Temple comes in. Come on, show it to me. They both were taught as influential religious, historical, and literacy texts. It could bolster students' educational rigor and historical context. Even so, the fact that requiring Bible passages in schools is considered controversial at all shows how much education has changed over the past century. For the better! For decades, reading the Bible as both a religious and literary text wasn't just common, it was encouraged, expected, and viewed as a public good. Says the homeschooling mom. Maybe did she go to private schools or something? Maybe it is true, but I feel like it's possible. I would take it with a grain of salt until I looked into it more. Texas education can improve even beyond adding the Bible. I don't even want to know what she. Oh, this is her heading. Okay. I understand why some Texans worry that the state public education is now endorsing Christianity. Oh, you understand, do you? You're not mad about it, but you understand. Going too far in doing so. But the Pilgrims' pursuit of religious freedom was a foundational influence on America's early colonial history, and that's worth honoring. But you're doing the opposite of that. See, this is what she was probably homeschooled too. She doesn't fucking know anything. The Bible is such a fundamental text, especially in America, that I'm surprised it isn't taught in every K through 12 public school in the country. I'm sorry, can you quote me to the point of Genesis? It's very important for us to understand America by. She just wants more animal sacrifices. That's the reason why we need to read that book. I'm being sarcastic. Don't come at me. Skipping it would be like teaching American history without George Washington. Bro, this is like fucking traitor level dog shit. Literature without William Shakespeare or philosophy without Socrates. Key figures all peak delusion. Or teaching American history without the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, I'm sure you care about this. The founding texts themselves. If you care so much about the Constitution, why don't you read it, jackass? Even Richard Dawkins, where's she going with this? One of the world's most prominent atheists, he is one, has acknowledged that Christianity profoundly shaped Western civilization, the values like human rights that even non-believers rely on today, that you guys don't abide by. Texas residents, educators, and even the board itself may be missing a larger point. A Bible-infused, however valuable, isn't the only thing missing from Texas public schools. She wants it infused in the curriculum, guys. Not creepy at all. High school graduation rates are strong, and college readiness scores are decent, but reading and math scores fall below the national average in many districts, though that varies significantly across such a large state. I'm sorry. Can you quote me the passage from Exodus which is gonna help with math scores? Reading, you can maybe make an argument, but what? Where is she going with this one? Talking about the Bible will help with math scores. Did she use a lot of math in making the crack that she's smoking right now? I'd like to see just as much effort go toward improving education for Texas. Sarcasm. I'd like to see just as much effort go toward improving education for Texas students as has gone toward teaching them the Beatitudes. In Dallas-Fort Worth, schools notoriously pay football coaches almost twice what they pay teachers of core subjects like algebra or ELAR. English language arts and reading. Texas students to teacher ratio about 22-1 is well above the national average of 15-1. Where is it 15-1? Making it harder for teachers to give struggling kids the attention they need. Expanding Texas education savings accounts. The state's versions of school choice to all Texas families would give schools a much stronger incentive to raise their standards and improve teaching, so kids actually learn more. Ah, yes, diverting money away from public schools and towards your shitty fucking charter schools or whatever. No offense to charter school people. That's going to make public schools stronger, actually, is when you divert funds away from them towards other schools. The Bible belongs on school reading lists alongside the Constitution and Shakespeare. But if Texas leaders are serious about preparing the next generation, they should put just as much energy into improving literacy, math, and classroom instruction as they do into debating which Bible passages belong on that list. Bro, she sucks. The right track? No, thank you. Freakazoid. She pretended to care about, maybe if they wanted to seem less biased, they could have included Jewish texts and Quran texts as well. But she's not fighting for that. She doesn't actually care. It's a way of seeming unbiased. I'm sorry. Did she not know that Graham Plattner has been removed? Is she unaware? Also, the nerve of a Republican daring to say anything about this when Trump was civilly convicted, for rape. Subhuman. I feel like there were so many Democrats talking about Graham Plattner. How could she say that with a straight face? It was all I ever heard about for the past, month. Bro, she's coping about the tariffs. Prosperity doesn't make us great, liberty does. Oh, wait, did the title change? Did the title change? Playing a dangerous game there. Am I crazy? When I clicked on it over here, it said prosperity didn't make America great. Liberty did. She changed the either displayed differently on one view or she changed the title. That would be very funny. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a distraction, but I'm so curious about the moral depravity of this psychopath. She's not a Carlson person. She's still with MAGA loyalists. Okay. Well, okay. So now the last thing I wanted to talk about with relation to this, because I have been going for like about 2 hours actually on the nose, is I had a bunch of James Madison quotes saved from when I was fighting with that loser Mike Chippendale. Let me find those real quick. Also, okay, no more, no new comments. Gotcha. Hey, this isn't where the law making happen. Eh? I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Did I get something wrong? Message me more directly. What you're talking about. Right. Madison. Posts from me. I have a whole sloth of them. Go through them real quick. Oh, by the way, if you are a conservative and you want to argue with me, that guy who was in here earlier, if you want to argue with me, I'll fucking drag you into Discord right now. Let's do it. My stream title? Which stream? Which stream didn't have the right title, dude? Edit stream title. Edit stream info. Oh. It was in the go live notification. That's my bad. That's my bad. Alright, I got you. Where are all my Madison quotes? Alright, here's one I have. James Madison, penman of the Constitution, on congressional chaplains and prayers at government meetings. There shouldn't even be chaplains in the military or in the government. The author of our Constitution wrote this. The establishment of the chaplainship to Congress is a palpable violation of equal rights, as well as of constitutional principles. The tenets of the chaplains elected by the majority shut the door of worship against the members whose creeds and consciences forbid a participation in that of the majority. Do you think that man who said that about a fucking chaplain want a public school to have Bible teachings? Are you out of your fucking mind? Do I really not have these saved somewhere? I have a couple more. I'm just gonna read a few of these. Thomas Jefferson's 1802 letter to the Danbury Baptist Association. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith in his worship. That the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence, easy for me to say, the act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. James Madison, in a letter to Jasper Adams in the early 1830s, In the papal system, government and religion are in a manner consolidated, and that is found to be the worst of governments. In most of the governments of the old world, the legal establishment or a particular religion, and without or with very little toleration of others, makes a part of the political and civil organization, and there are few of the most enlightened judges who will maintain that the system has been favorable either to religion or to government. A little bit of a mouthful, but he did say it. James Madison, June 1778, in the Journal. There is not a shadow of right in the general government to intermeddle with religion. Its least interference with it would be a most flagrant usurpation. I can appeal to my uniform conduct on the subject that I have warmly supported religious freedom. James Madison in Detached Memoranda. The same place, by the way, where he said chaplains have no fucking business being, in the government. The Constitution of the U.S. forbids everything like an establishment of a natural religion. Roger Williams, founder of Rhode Island, who was himself a Christian, though, as many of the founders were, despite believing that shouldn't intermeddle with religion. He literally founded Rhode Island to establish religious freedom, by the way. Wrote in The Bloody Tenet of Persecution for the Cause of Conscience in 1644. An enforced uniformity of religion throughout a nation or civil state confounds the civil and religious, denies the principles of Christianity and civility, and that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. In Rhode Island's founding charter, it states, all and every person and persons may, from time to time, at all times hereafter, freely and fully have and enjoy his and their own judgments and consciences in matters of religious concernments. Thomas Jefferson, in a letter from 1808, we have solved by fair experiment. Hold on, I had to fucking expand it and now it fucking disappeared. We have solved by fair experiment the great and interesting question whether freedom of religion is compatible with order in government and obedience to the laws. We have experienced the quiet as well as the comfort which results from leaving everyone to profess freely and openly those principles of religion which are the deductions of his own reason and the serious convictions of his own inquiries. James Madison quotes on church and state. Letter to Robert Walsh, March 2nd, 1819. The number, the industry, and the morality of the priesthood and the devotion of the people have been manifestly increased by the total separation of the church from the state. It is proper to take alarm at the first experiment on our liberties. Who does not see that the same authority which can establish Christianity in exclusion of all other religions may establish with the same ease any particular sect of Christians in exclusion of all other sects? That the same authority which can force a citizen to contribute 3 pence only of his property for the support of any one religious establishment may force him to conform to any other establishment in all cases whatsoever. From Memorial and Remonstrance. From the letter to F.L. Schaeffer in 1821. The experience of the United States is a happy disproof of the error so long rooted in the unenlightened minds of well-meaning Christians, a little bit too charitable there, I'd argue, as well as in the corrupt hearts of persecuting usurpers, now that's more like it, that without legal incorporation of religious and civil polity, neither could be supported. A mutual independence is found most friendly to practical religion, to social harmony, and to political prosperity. I want to read every single fucking quote like a fucking robot or whatever. Already read that one. Already read that one. Already read that one. Torrents of blood have been spilt in the old world by vain attempts of the secular arm to extinguish religious discord by prescribing all difference in religious opinion. Time has at length revealed the true remedy. Every relaxation of narrow and rigorous policy, whether it has been tried, has been found to assuage the disease. I actually follow that one. He what? Relaxation of narrow rigorous policy. I would need. I'm sorry. I need a scholar for that one. I can't. I can't read his old English. And I talked about this one briefly. I don't think I actually read the full thing. Is the appointment of chaplains to the two houses of Congress consistent with the Constitution and with the pure principles of religious freedom? In strictness, the answer on both points must be in the negative. The Constitution of the U.S. forbids everything like an establishment of a national religion. The law appointing chaplains establishes a religious worship for the national representatives to be performed by ministers of religion elected by a majority of them, and these are to be paid out of the national taxes. Does not this involve the principle of a national establishment applicable to a provision for a religious worship for the constituent as well as of the representative body, approved by the majority, conducted by ministers of religion paid by the entire nation? From detached memoranda. I read another part of that too as well. Obviously, these particular quotes that I just found were compiled by the separation of church and state entity. But I have looked at the actual detached memoranda text and found that there. Well, I'll bring it up for all the fucking doubters and haters. University of Chicago. That was where it came from. It's all right there. Go through if you think I misquoted anything. Fuck you. All right, who's the who? I mean, who is the lovely enlightened gentleman? Reason and Science Cats board com. I'm gonna give him some time. If he wants to fucking come in here, I will give him some time to do that. And then if not, I'm just gonna play a pre-recorded interview we did a while ago about death rituals. And that's gonna be it. That's gonna be it for me. With a Canadian guy who works at a university. It's been so long. I will introduce him properly in the pre-recorded video. I promise. Are you still here? Do you want to jump into the VC to argue about the creation of the universe? You know, we're touching the light topics here today. Other than that, I'm gonna. Is it on my hard? Don't tell me that's on my fucking hard drive and not on this. That's some Arc Raiders bullshit. De La Cruz. Is that Arc Raiders? What the fuck is that? It's on my stupid fucking. It's on the stupid fucking drive, isn't it? I have to go pull it. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? We have any takers? Are you still here? Oh, that's me. That's me. Who's saying that? Who's asking if I'm still here? No. I have to pull this stupid thing, apparently. I had fucking prepared properly. Wouldn't have to be digging around now, would I? Wait, no! Chris Miller interview. Okay. You should be able to hear me. Oh I see that you are muted. It's this guy, right? Yeah, it is. Okay. With that being said, I will now play for you the lovely interview. And then when you're done watching that, I can play Sea of Thieves. It's only 21 minutes, so Sea of Thieves soon. If you're watching this right now and you're here for the gaming, I will soon. I will go not live, and then I will go live again to do some gaming. So be prepared for that. Say hello to Chris Miller from Canada. Muted. Um, if you hit unmute, I'll be able to hear you. You can choose the video chat if you want or not, whatever is your preference. Oh, hello. How are you doing today?
Hi there. Good,
Um,
good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can. Normally, I would share my video with you as well, but if I do that, it'll mess up my OBS and it won't show up on the recording of this. But you have a nice apartment. I love Snoopy in the background.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So you are a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Ottawa, and you have been studying digital humanities, and you're a researcher in non-religion and a complex future. Talk to me a little bit about your studies.
Yeah, it's a tough question because my research is a little bit all over the place. Right now, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Ottawa doing a project on democracy and governance and trust and sort of the everyday kind of minor events where people build trust with each other. But over the course of my career, I've also had a lot of other projects that deal with death and dying, and specifically looking at death through the lens of non religion. So, how do people without a religious background or with maybe a variety of spiritual backgrounds kind of come to terms with death and end of life?
And so, what do you find? How do non-religious people deal with death? What are some of the things that they do? You said that non-religious rituals.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I think I entered this expecting to be like, wow, it would be drastically different than, religious people want things this way, very much according to the guidelines of religion, and so non-religious people are going to have something completely different. But what we're seeing overall, because we talked in our research, I talked to religious people, non-religious people, spiritual people, is everyone kind of wants something more or less the same thing. They want people around them when they die. They want the things that they enjoy during life when they die. They want to be physically comfortable,
Right.
and so I think it tends to be we're all sort of more similar in some of those ways when it comes to the end of our life.
Right, and also I assume for mourning the people that we love who are gone. We also have similar ritualistic things like that, even though we don't necessarily believe in the supernatural or an afterlife or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The belief is probably the same thing, or sorry, the belief is the different thing. Where some people from certain backgrounds might think that somebody is up in heaven, and so that's sort of the thought that you have as you go through the world throughout the day. But religious or otherwise, if your loved one is buried at a certain place, then you might kind of visit that and think about them. You don't necessarily think about heaven. You are more likely to kind of think about, well, what did you do with them they were here with you? And so I think we're kind of similar in that way too.
Yeah, I know. Like my mother passed away, and she's a Catholic cemetery. I'm the only member of my family who left religion. But I'll still go to the grave, even though she can't see me there. And I even found myself talking to her for whatever reason, even though I know full well she can't hear me. It's not that I think she can hear me. It's just it makes you feel a little better, I guess. I'm not sure how to describe it, but yeah.
No, definitely. It is one of those things. I'm sorry to hear about your loss. And it is one of those things where you're not quite sure how to describe it. And it's just you do it because I guess it feels right. It makes sense. One project that I did was on green or natural cemeteries. So people who want to be buried in a very kind of non-traditional way to be a little bit more in touch with nature. And the interesting thing in that project was there were people who were very religious who wanted to do it, who believe they're going to heaven. There were people who are kind of hardline atheists and think nothing happens, you're dead, the lights out, and that's it. But all of these people want the same thing in terms of their burial because they have their own kind of connection to nature. Whether they think
Right.
this is where I want my spirit to travel, that will be like a nice background, or whether they think, well, I'm dead, but at least when my family visits me, I'd like it to like look a little
To
bit
be a
nicer
nice place
than
for
a
them to,
traditional
yeah,
cemetery.
yeah. No, that's very interesting. And so, are there any unusual rituals or mourning or for your own end of your life that you found non-religious people engage in that were surprising?
I'm trying to think. That's a good question. There's nothing that I've come across that's too far out of the norm. But I think the rituals are overall becoming like a lot less formal, are becoming a lot more personal. So we did a project looking at obituaries, and the end of an obituary is typically the funeral will be held at this time, the celebration of life will be held at this time, and we're noticing pop up. I mean, it's hard to know when you're reading an obituary, was this person an atheist, was this person agnostic, was this person
Right.
religious? It's not always spelled out, but we're noticing across the board that it's like, well, don't go to this funeral home, don't go to this church, don't even go to the cemetery, come to like Patty's Pub, or come to this local park where we're going to have a picnic. And doing some interviews with people, it's become a lot more to really lean into the celebration of life, and like we're going to have a party. And I think when you first hear about it, it may be it strikes the ear a little bit strangely. It's like, really, we just lost someone, shouldn't we be sad? But the more that you talk to people about it, the more that it seems like, yeah, well, it's a good time for the family to get together. It's a
Yeah.
good time to remember all the kind of happy memories. And why would we why would we put on all this formality when they're dead, when when that person was around, they were a little bit more casual. Maybe there's some people where
Exactly.
the suit and tie is a little bit more fitting, but for a lot of people, if I don't think my father, say somebody thinks my father didn't wear a suit any time in their life, well, why would everyone else put one on for their funeral?
Exactly. So you say you interviewed people about this. How did you go about finding people to interview, and where did you interview them at these parties, or what were you doing for your research?
Yeah, no, we've done interviews in a couple of different projects, and so we usually kind of identify, I guess we'll call it like a population or a topic, and then we'll kind of do our reach out to and contact people that way. So one of our projects is on these events called death cafes. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. But they're basically these events where people get together. Could be in a library, sometimes it's in a church, sometimes it's literally like in a coffee shop or a bar, and you just talk about death.
Right.
So for our research, we would be attending some of these, but more often we would be kind of contacting people who had attended death cafes in the past, and we organized some kind of group interviews. So we were able to kind of recreate. All of this was done over Zoom, so it was virtual. It didn't quite have the coffee and fresh baguettes that you might get at a death cafe,
Right.
but we were able to recreate the kind of, let's get together, let's talk about death. What do you like about these events? What do you not like? What do you think's going to happen when you die? And get kind of a good robust conversation going with people. And again, in those conversations, because Death Cafe was the focus, we had people who were religious and attended Death Cafes, people who were atheist, agnostic, humanist, and then a lot of people who were also just kind of like, well, I'm spiritual. Well, I don't quite like to put a label on it. Sort of the SBNRs.
Right. What do you think about the individuals who do strange things to try to find out how to become immortal? Like I don't know, the people who are taking like transfusions of blood from younger people. What do you think about all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting is the only word that I can think to say. Um, it's there is a lot of research that's being done on that, specifically those types of people. Transhumanism, the radical life extension, the fusion of technology and death. I think personally, kind of taking my scholar hat off, it does seem a little bit extreme, but that's just me. It's I guess to each their own, right?
Right. On your website, chrismiller.ca, you mentioned new religious movements. What are those? What are you referring to there?
Yeah, so new religious movements is a term. I don't think anyone outside of scholarship used it, but we scholars started using it to just um, basically lump a bunch of different groups together, for lack of a better word, because realistically, every religious movement or every religion was a new religious movement at some point.
Right.
So the groups that we're thinking of, Scientology,
Oh yeah.
I study contemporary paganism. Mormonism is one that I study through the lens of a new religious movement, but 1830, people might be starting to say like, whoa, 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 we're not a new religious movement anymore. But kind of groups like that, a lot of them started in the 60s and the 70s. They would often maybe be talked about in pop culture as cults, and that is a word that has some kind of damaging, some negative connotations along. So scholars swooped in and said, maybe cult isn't the best way to describe these things. New religious movement is a little bit more of a value neutral judgment of these groups. But it's basically groups that came up within the last century or so, and share some kind of common characteristics in that sense.
Do Scientologists have death um rituals?
I don't know. I don't know a ton about. I mean, I guess I know about the beliefs of Scientology. I watch South Park after all, so I know
Yeah.
what they think about the Earth and how the Earth. I should say beyond the Earth and whatever's going on in space. If that episode can be believed, but I don't actually know too much about what their death rituals are. That's a good question. Gives you something to Google later.
Are you familiar with Leah Remini? Or Leah, I don't know how to say her last name.
Yeah,
Remini.
yeah, Remini.
Yeah, because I remember her going, doing all the interviews, after she left Scientology about, the aggressiveness of the shunning that happens when you leave and things like that, and how, they just milk you for money, I guess. It's very interesting listening to that person, but I was just curious if you had heard of them. Uh,
Yeah, I forget
yeah.
if her show was Going Clear or if there was another one like that. But yeah, a lot of yeah, I was familiar with that.
Interesting. Um, let's see here. Do you ever dabble in like, because sometimes people write books or they make movies, and then inside that media, there are like stories about the afterlife or death rituals. Do you look into that at all, or is that of any interest to you?
It's not something that I've ever researched, but it's something that I guess kind of interests me personally. I just saw, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the movie. I think it's Eternity.
Yeah,
Which had oh gosh, I'm blanking on the names. Miles Teller and oh gosh, I can't remember Keelan Olsen, and that was a really interesting kind of here's a theoretical idea about what might happen in the afterlife. And interesting, I'll shout out a fellow colleague of mine, Hannah McKillop. She does her research right now on popular culture and non-religious afterlife. So she mostly looks at the show The Good Place,
The Good
if you're
Place.
familiar with that. And it's this very robust, very built-out idea of here is what the afterlife could possibly be like. And it's sort of non-religious in a sense. At least it's not tied to any religion that I'm familiar with. And so yeah, it's interesting how these ideas that we just kind of make up for the sake of TV can sometimes have resonance with people who are like, you know what, that is an idea that's comforting. That is an idea that I would like to think about, and helps me kind of live my life in a certain way, thinking about that possibility.
It's funny. I think someone at work 3 months ago referred me to that show or something. You talked about Green
Have you
Burial.
started it?
No, I actually never listened to them and watched it. I've been watching the old Godfather movies because I never watched them. So that was, it was like I had this list of like classics I've never watched, and I don't watch movies a lot, so I've just while I'm doing something else, been trying to bang them out. But anyway, you were talking about green burials, and the reason why I asked that question, to be honest, about the not the fictional universes and death rituals and spiritual stuff is because the green burial thing kind of reminds me of with the not non-spiritual, but oh, it's in nature, it's really nice kind of thing. It just reminded me of the fictional world behind Final Fantasy VII, where like the religion is just the planet. And I don't know, it was just reminding me of that, like respecting the nature and the plant life and all that. It was just interesting to me. But yeah, um, you have a section on here about digital paganism. Uh, can you talk to me about that? What is this about?
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of, I've never played the Final Fantasy games, but speaking of a world where, the world is alive and we're all kind of interconnected, that's another kind of way that I came to that work on Green Burial. But in terms of digital paganism, I've studied modern pagans, contemporary pagans a lot, witchcraft, Wicca, heathenry, and things like this. But then, as we are all addicted to social media, I wanted to think about what are some ways that I can kind of blend my research interests with my non-research interests. And so, digital paganism is basically pagans who use the internet as a way of expressing their religious identity. So it might be going on Twitter, or at least it was Twitter at the time that I was
Yeah.
studying that.
For some of us, it
Might
still
go on.
is.
Exactly. That's why I use the word. People, you might be you go on Twitter and you argue with people, and that, believe it or not, is an important part of what religion is. Whether it's debating the theology of what we believe, or whether it's we debate about, like, is this appropriate? Is this a proper thing to do in your community? But also on things like TikTok, and it's, the way that you narrate your everyday life.
Right.
There are other ways that pagans use the internet or various social media as a way of, like, leading rituals, especially during the pandemic. It was a way that people were like, hey, we can have this ritual collectively together. We can get 50 people in here. We can get 12 people in here, maybe a smaller, more intimate setting, and we can all kind of have that connection. We can do our ritual in pretty much a similar way as we would have done in the real world, in air quotes, but we're just using the internet as a way to do it instead.
Interesting. Yeah. I I think I dated one girl who was Wiccan, and it didn't last terribly long 'cause she lived 2.5 hours away. But all I remember is that she had this ritual where she would sometimes go bury a dollar bill in the ground, and she said that that would lead her to better fortune in the future. So I don't know. I guess she was donating that money to nature. Maybe I don't know. But
Yeah, or, it'll come back to her. It's an investment that'll pay dividends sometime in the future.
yeah, interesting stuff. Well, did you have anything else you thought would be interesting to touch upon? I think this has been a very interesting conversation.
No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, yeah. I guess just one other thing. You were mentioning, any kind of strange rituals that people do, and didn't come to my mind until after I'd answered the question. So I'll talk about it now. But a kind of popular thing that's we're starting to see a little bit are these things called pre-funerals.
Oh
Where
boy.
basically it's why don't we have, or a pre-wake? Yeah, I mean, it's basically we're borrowing an old idea and we're calling it something new.
Yeah.
But, let's have a pre-funeral and let's have a pre-wake, and let's not wait until we're dead to have all of our family and friends gather around and tell us, how much they loved us, and how much we mean to each other. And, for non-religious people, this is really popular because we don't believe, non-religious people would not believe that there's something that's going to happen after you die. So this
Right.
is kind of your last chance to say something. This is your last chance to connect with someone. But like I've kind of said throughout this conversation, while it has that meaning for non-religious people, it's also an important thing that religious people are starting to do as well. Because whether or not you believe in heaven, maybe that's a long way away for you, or maybe, you're not sure that you're going to end up in the same place and going to be able to talk to each other. And so whatever your belief is about the afterlife, it's this kind of recognition that, like, well, we're here now, we're all together now, we're all on the same earth, spiritual plane, whatever word you want to call it now. So we might as well connect with each other, and let's not wait until somebody's dead, to say all those nice things. Let's instead, bring everyone into the hospital
Right.
room, or bring everyone into the living room, whatever the circumstances may be, and have all those lovely conversations.
On the one hand, I guess it might be awkward. Hey, I'm gonna die soon, and here's me acknowledging it. But on the other hand, that is very nice. I do like what you said about, this is your last. This is our only chance to tell people about the way we feel, that we love each other. From a non-religious, from an atheist standpoint, one of the things that worries me about religion a lot of the time is that, and not just for this, but for things in general, it gives you the idea that you shouldn't live in this moment that you're in right now necessarily, because you're just working towards the afterlife. I have a religious grandmother who makes it sound like she basically thinks like life on earth is just, this is work, and then once you get to the afterlife, that's when you can have fun. And if you save the having fun for when you find the afterlife, you might be a little bit disappointed and miss out on a few things. But yeah, it's just one of the things that worries me, and the idea that you wouldn't have that moment where you're telling the person who's dying how much you care about them. Not that you would never do that, but that you wouldn't have that particular moment at, like, for example, a pre-funeral, and then they're gone, and you think, well, I could just tell them when I see them in heaven. That is a little bit, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It would be sad if, that doesn't happen, because you might not necessarily have an afterlife. But so yeah, that is a really good idea. I do like that. What's the story behind the painting on the wall there behind your lamp? The right behind your
Oh,
lamp. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I guess, most of your audience. I don't know if they're in Rhode Island. There might not be a ton of Canadians. That's The Death of General Wolfe. It's a famous Canadian painting about the battle, I think an extension of the Seven Years' War. Although I might have to fact check that. We're basically a battle between New France and between Britain and Canada. And it's
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of painting of a general kind of dying in the field of battle.
Was that 1700s, 1800s? I'm trying to remember my history.
You're putting me on the spot, and I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to say 1800s, and I'm really going to hope I'm right.
Wait, let me look it up real quick. Um, oh, it was actually
1770
before.
up.
It was right before the American Revolution, apparently. So 1756 to 1763. Well,
Yeah,
you,
there you go. Can you edit this so that I sound a lot smarter?
yeah, no problem. Hey, it wasn't your area, so it's no problem.
Well, it's his death, so I should know it. But
That's
yeah,
true.
it's not history; it's contemporary death.
Yeah,
Good save.
exactly. All right. Well, Chris Miller, it was fantastic to talk to you. If you ever have any other topics you want to explore with us, or you ever want to reach out to the Rhode Island Atheists for whatever reason, feel free. Very nice having such a learned PhD on the show to talk. And I'm sorry. I have to figure out how to share my own video in Discord without messing up the camera source in OBS so that people can look at my face too. I'm sure that's a little bit awkward, but I haven't figured that out yet. But anyway, have a good rest of your Tuesday.